What's good? What's happening? Yes. You know, somebody we was conversating uh, about history. Every chance we get, we talk about history. Lately I've been on an economic kind of tip. You know what I mean? Black Wall Street thing. I'm very curious about Black Wall Street. You know what I'm saying? Well, I found out there were more than one Black Wall Street. There were Black Wall Streets. You know, uh, something else that caught my attention was the turn this fan down. Turn that away. I don't want to mess with it again. What caught my attention was uh, the Great Migration of the South. That really caught my attention. The Underground Railroad. Caught my attention, and just black families. Migrating to the north, east, west of America. Hoping to find opportunity. You know what I mean? Not what I'm saying. When it was down in the South, even though some towns in the South, had blacks were thriving in business, in the South, but what caught my attention is where I'm from, Sacramento, California. It's known for its gold, the gold rush, but Sacramento, California, I call with the history. It's called Negro Hills, California. That's like the black history in Sacramento, Negro Hills, California. Goes all the way back to the 1800s. According to the English, what they say about Negro Hills, but the evidence is right there in the city. Because some people say, well, man, that sounds good, but all you got it out of a book, man, they can make up anything, but the evidence is right there in the city. East Sacramento, that's where the Negro Hills evidence, that's where that's at. An area, a very middle class, upper class area called Folsom. The way I bumped into Negro Hills, the way I bumped into it, I was working for a place called a Conservation Corps at the time, and we had to clear out a trail up in Folsom. We had to clear the trail out. So I'm working for the local Conservation Corps in Sacramento. We up here at Folsom. It's a few of us. We were smoking weed. I took a few hits at a blunt. And I started clearing the trail out and away from the crowd. And as I started walking up, I happened to look up, and I seen this sign. It was hanging off from like a building, and it said Negro Bar. I stared at that sign for like, I don't know, 20 minutes high, staring at it. Because I was asking myself, I said, why in the hell would a Caucasian call his bar Negro Bar, you know. Then I got to thinking, I said, well, shit, maybe he had slaves or something, and he wanted to do some special for his slaves, you know, in their own bar where they can drink at it, you know, enjoy the juice, you know. That's the way I looked at it. I was like, nah, that couldn't be. Ain't no Caucasian man that's supposed to be a master gonna call his bar a Negro bar. Nah, he's not gonna do no favors like that. He's not gonna do that. Nah. And I just stared at it, man. And then I remember one of my older partners, he had said where he stayed in East Sacramento called Lincoln Village. And he said that was called Little Africa at one time. And I looked at him like he was bullshitting. I said, hell no, I don't call no Little Africa, man. You bullshitting, man. Okay, all right, it's called Little Africa, but whatever. Now, years later, I was on the internet, and it was I think it was Black History Month. You know, I think it was Black History Month. Yeah, and I was just looking up some Black history. You know, cities and towns in America. You know, a lot of blacks. You know, where they populated at. You know, like Detroit, Harlem. You know, Chicago. You know, Los Angeles. You know, Oakland. You know, I was just looking at a lot of towns. You know, Atlanta, Jacksonville. There's a lot of towns, man. So I said, let me look up my town, you know, Sacramento, you know, see what's up with the Black history there. So, you know, I Google, you know, Black history, you know, in Sacramento, and there it was, Negro Bar popped up. I said, damn, I remember this shit 20 years ago. I ran into this shit, and here it is 20 years later. So I was like, damn. So when I got to reading it, man, you know, it had several, several, things you can go to. And I just went through a lot of them. One of them sparked my mind was, it was Negro, it was Negro Hills to what was that? The Niagara River. Negro Hills to the Niagara River. That was, that right there, that right there blew my mind, you know, because I was like, damn, from Sacramento to Africa. I said, damn, you know, because Negro Hills, you know, was all about gold mining. So they had gold mines, copper mines, silver mines, diamond mines, ruby mines, iron mines, you know. So, you know, they had Negro Hills, Negro Bar, Negroville, you know, Negro County, you know. You know, it was just really, really amazing, you know what I mean? Uh, Now, that's why the migration south is important, because it's important, you know. They tell you how people was living, you know what I'm saying? They was getting land grant. They were given land grants by the Mexican government, you know, and these black families, man, they took off from Negro Hills and spread it and migrated all through Sacramento, you know, the south, north, east, west, uptown, midtown, Sacramento, you know what I mean? Every neighborhood in Sacramento is a historical black neighborhood, you know, every neighborhood, you know. I read books too. Like one book is called The History of El Dorado County. That's an interesting book too. Like that book, you know. Another book is called The West. Matter of fact, it's two of them. One is a brown book with black lettering. I think the author is named Michael Savage. Then there's the black and white, the white and black book. I gotta look up the author of that one. But yeah, it was two books I ran into. You know, and the book with Michael Savage, the brown book. You know, he said, when the blacks migrated to the West, to the state of California, most of the blacks were in Sacramento County, mainly because of the gold rush. You know, this has something to do with the emancipation proclamation Lincoln, you know, because it has something to do with, so it was a lot of blacks in Sacramento, California. Sacramento, California at that time had to be a black nation based on the fact the resources that it had, The Buffalo Soldiers, if you're familiar with that, they were coming out of Sacramento, California. Sacramento, California has two military bases, actually three military bases. Three of them are shut down. Two Air Force and an Army depot, shut down. And on the graveyard, in the graveyard, they have tombstones, of some of the Buffalo Soldiers, And on those tombstones it says "Unknown Nigger" by the U.S. government. The U.S. government with ARCA bases. Those military bases used to be the bases for the Buffalo Soldiers, because they had, up in Negro Hills, they had their own military forts, Yeah, it was a black nation, for a very long time, long period of time. It was a black nation, you know, agriculture, farming, people building towns, you know, people, living wealthy, you know, and then, once a generation, sprung up out of Negro Hills, then, once they became the government, they started letting other cultures in, such as the Spanish was the first to enter Negro Hills. They were the first. The first to get the blessings, and then, decades down the line came the English, you know. But there was a lot of others that came in, the China, the Iranians, all them, started coming in to Negro Hills. This is basically how America really started becoming a melting pot, mainly because of Negro Hills and the resources that Negro Hills had. This is when you start hearing stuff like, well, the Chinese helped build the railroad, stuff like that, the Negro Hills opened up opportunities for other black Wall Streets to become Wall Streets based on the fact of the resources that Negro Hills had. And proof, in the book of El Dorado County, iron mines, chrome iron mines, there were two brothers by the name of the Mitchell brothers. They had an instinctive chrome iron mine of Negro Hills. You know what I mean? So you can imagine the money that they were getting on the daily. Chrome iron mine, shipping chrome by the ton. It's in a book, man, called The History of El Dorado County. Hey, man, go Google it, look it up. It's right there in the book once you start reading it. They said they were shipping iron to, you know, cities like New England, New York, you know, Baltimore, you know, Chicago, Detroit, you know what I'm saying? You know, biddies here in America. They were shipping iron. And in one chapter it says uh, Sacramento mountains have enough iron to supply the whole United States of America. What's that telling you? Negro Hills, California, you know, that education right there opened the doors for cities like Tulsa, Durham, you know, and any other Black Wall Street, based on the fact of the resources that they had, you know. But yeah, Negro Hills, look that up, Google it. Negro Hills, California, you know, is the blueprints to America. When you think about Negro Hills, you think about places like Egypt, Timbuktu. When you think about Negro world history, you know what I mean? American history. That's what Negro Hills is, you know. I just wanted to give you a briefing on Negro Hills, California. Signing out.